It's been a while since I dragged my rump across the canvas of the WWE game library, and I've decided to play WWF Smackdown 2 on my return. Why? Well, it was the most excited I've been to play a WWE game since the days of WrestleFest, and it probably remains the most excited I've been since. I used to get hyped up about dashing home to play through a Royal Rumble as, say, Taz or Stevie Richards, or unlocking another hidden character in season mode. What an exciting life I had in my early 20s. That's living all right. I haven't played Smackdown 2 since the third one came out on the PlayStation 2. And I started wondering to myself recently, I wonder if it's any good today. I used to play that game a lot. In fact, I put more hours into that game than any other game on the PlayStation 1 except for maybe ISS Pro 98 or Final Fantasy 7. I must admit I was very nervous to play it. I mean, what if it's aged about as well as all those old storylines about Vincent Kennedy McMahon being an old pervert? Man, we all thought he was just a good method actor. Before I look at the game itself, I'd like to take a look at the journey that got me to Smackdown 2 and just why I felt unsatisfied by every WWE effort outside of the Techno's arcade pair of WWF WrestleFest and WWF Superstars up until Smackdown 2's release. I mean, long story short, most of those games were absolute trash. But I need to get my watch hours up, and that won't needlessly pad out the video, will it? I have covered many of these games already. My path to the PlayStation 1's pinnacle of WWF game enjoyment from WrestleFest was long, taking in Ocean Spectrum WWF WrestleMania, WrestleMania Challenge on the NES, WWF Superstars on the Game Boy, Royal Rumble on the SNES, WrestleMania, the arcade game, and those Riseable Attitude and Warzone games by Acclaim. That last pair of games sunk me into such a deep depression that only the stroking of 15 kittens could possibly make me feel okay to face the day. And as I had a face that cats just don't like, most days were drawn out and miserable. Some of the games I've just mentioned had their fans, and I can understand that, but the accessibility of WWF Smackdown 2, and to a lesser degree its direct prequel, was an enticing prospect. The Acclaim games made it very hard for the beginner to pull off moves, and well, they just left me cold. Not only that, but the Smackdown games had a huge, massive sandbox of different match opportunities that no other game could live up to. And yes, if you're wondering, I didn't play the N64 Aki games such as No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000 or the WCW games until much, much later. And yeah, they were probably better. WWF Smackdown 2 and my love of it was no doubt helped by what was very much a wrestling renaissance part of my life. I dropped off wrestling through my teens before Channel 4 presented it right in my face when they started showing episodes of WWF Heat on Sunday mornings. I could tell instantly that the product was a lot different from when I last saw it in the era of Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage. The roughhousery of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the cocksure promo magic coming out of The Rock's mouth, and that huge void on each flared nostril of Triple H. How could I resist? This was enticing telly. And being on Sunday mornings, I was watching it through hungover eyes. And yet, no matter what state I was in, it was appointment television for me. Channel 4 even showed the Royal Rumble that year, and an old lady showed everyone her spaniel's ears, and I don't mean the audio-receptive organs of a dog. I had become enthralled with the WWE again, and that's not entirely due to the ageing sweater meat of a septuagenarian that I'd seen on the telly. And so I was back into wrestling, and looky here, there was the release of the PlayStation 1 Smackdown games at roughly that time too. What a joyous time indeed to rediscover American professional wrestling. The WWF at the time was at a very key moment in its history. Yes, it was about to lose the battle with the panda bear for the name, WWF, but it was on the cusp of beating its 90s rival WCW into the dirt. The calibre of talent was huge and impressive. As well as The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, you've got Golden Age legends like The Undertaker and the Big Boss Man. You've got young tag team show stealers like the Hardys, the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. You've got upper mid-card talent like Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Shh, no one mentioned Chris Benoit. And you've also got a smattering of divas like Trish, the Cat, Lita and Deborah. And they're all in this game. There's so many wrestlers in this game. But yeah, you probably won't play as the divas because this is before the women's wrestling revolution. So most of them just fight like they've had too many Bacardi breezers outside of a nightclub on a Friday night. It's all scratching and slapping and hair pulling with these ladies. No, unfortunately in this game they don't have the wrestling chops of a Becky Lynch or a Bull Nakano. Sorry about that. These wrestlers can battle over a never before seen vast array of gimmick matches that will be enough to make Jim Cornette, who notoriously hates gimmick matches, pull this face. As well as standard one-on-ones and tag team struggles, there are special referee matches, there are furniture terrorising battles involving tables, ladders and chairs. You can stick a fella in a coffin before he's dead. I mean, that's premature, isn't it? Take that man out the coffin, wait for him to die, put him back in. There's a survival mode named after one of Jim Ross's favourite nonsense sayings, the slobber knocker, which doesn't cast you as Vince McMahon avoiding lawyers as he dribbles down an intern's baby feeders. We've got a cage match, and if that isn't fancy enough, a Hell in a Cell match which puts an extra bit of cage on the roof and you can jump off that roof like you're Mankind or something. Fancy losing a tooth? Knock yourself out, literally. And if being 20 foot away from the ring up isn't enough, well, you can then get as far away from the canvas as you like by fighting in a vast array of backstage areas with interactive scenery with which you can pretend to cave in a fella's skull. What larks! There's also a variety of handy blunt objects to be found all over the arena should your knuckles not feel like a violent enough option to remove teeth from your opponent's mouth. The mode I loved the most, though, was indeed my favourite event of the year, that being the WWF Royal Rumble. That glorious chaos that involves 30 men on the roster seeing who can survive the longest. It is here where I finally scratched that itch of near a decade earlier, a decent, accessible and exciting Royal Rumble mode that you could play at home. Yes, Royal Rumble on the 16-bits had a Royal Rumble mode, as did those horrendous Acclaim games, but this was the section of the game that finally made me give that Robert Redford nod to WrestleFest and say to it, "That'll do, pig, that'll do. Thank you, my friend, you can rest now." Not that I'd actually played it much since about 1993, because it was, an arcade game, and I don't live in an arcade. As well as the individual matches, which in itself will give you hours of enjoyment, there is the season mode, where you wrestle through a couple of years of WWE programming, fighting through 2 nights of weekly shows and a monthly pay-per-view. This mode is the meat of the game and is packed with cutscenes and unlockable content and characters like Billy Gunn, Mankind and Shawn Michaels, and because we're back in 2001, you unlock these characters by playing the game and not paying for them. Wonders never cease. God damn it, time. And in season mode, what else do you get? Lots and lots of loading screens. Each of the cast has a picture, and even though there's a lot of them, you'll tire of them soon enough. Should it be that one of S.A. Rios looking like he's concentrated on his bowel movements and ultimately failed doing so, or Trish Stratus having her bum cheeks on the wrong side of her body and a bit too high up. And the loading screens seem to hang around forever. And in season mode, these loading screens are joined by their friends, the loading bars. Your average show will usually see you compete in one match, and you can either watch the matches and incur more loading screens, or you can skip the matches, which don't do anything nice like instantly skip. No, instead they decide to put two energy bars together in a race to avoid extinction. This in itself takes a chunk of time. Time you can spend farting, looking at pictures of bakeries, or sticking a cocktail stick in your urethra. I know what I'd rather be doing, sticking a cocktail stick in my urethra. I'm showing this in real time. This is me playing through an episode of Smackdown. And you have to do this for 6 matches, 2 shows a week, without counting the pay-per-views. It's long and it's not fun, and you'll be seeing the same cutscenes throughout season mode a lot too. You can pick any wrestler you've unlocked and even swap mid-season to a different grappler if you so wish. This adds a bit of variety to the proceedings, and you can enter as a creator wrestler too. Here I've made Richard Madeley, the British TV presenter who is essentially Alan Partridge made flesh. Yes, even more so than Steve Coogan is. Not only can you create a wrestler, but you can also create stables, pay-per-views, managers and movesets. In terms of character customization, it's an extremely large step from the sparse options from the first Smackdown. But it won't impress you much, Shania Twain, if you're used to anything WWE related from the PlayStation 2 up. This is indicative of much of the game as a whole. It's a developing, evolving franchise at this stage, yet to hit its stride. It would be a further generation and a couple of games until it did. After that, it just stands still, and you realise that the franchise probably isn't as good as Fire Pro Wrestling World. Well, the nascent nature of a franchise on its way up extends to the gameplay. It's very quick and easy to pick up the controls, with context-sensitive attacks, and you can control your moves by pressing one of the attack or grappling buttons and a direction which gives you different moves. There's a fair amount, but not that many moves per wrestler. Additionally, there isn't a lot of difference in terms of strength or speed between the characters. Stephanie McMahon can body slam Viscera without pulling a muscle in her slender back, and Rikishi can leap with just as much gay abandon as Jeff Hardy in his young pomp. It is a very arcadey wrestling game. Throwing another wrestler off the top of a Hell in a Cell or hitting them with a chair will see them stay down for approximately 0.5 of a second. Graphically, it's very PlayStation 1. It's a machine trying its best to bring the excitement of sports entertainment to your 32-bit wonder. It's polygonal eyesaurage in the 2020s, alright, and there are notable cut corners with things like cardboard crowds and wrestlers not so much walking to the ring but trying to escape their intro videos that are following them like demons from hell. With that said, it's bright, it's vibrant, it's colourful fare, and it's a country mile from the atmosphere-free dark underpasses that seem to make up the arenas in WWF's Attitude and Warzone. In terms of sound, there's no commentary as yet. You don't get that until the PlayStation 2. However, you do get a range of the era macho guitar churn posturing. You can make your own commentary up if you like. Do your best, JR. Reviews of the game were pretty glowing for the time. IGN said if Smackdown 2 is going to be the last wrestling game on the PlayStation 1, no one will be liable to be disappointed in what they get when they pick it up. They gave it an 8.9 out of 10 in November 2000. GameSpot in November 2000 said WWF Smackdown 2 presents an excellent package, but you can't help but feel any real innovations have been sacrificed to get the game on the shelves before consumers leave the PlayStation 1 for the newer formats. That's fair enough. I can see why I love Smackdown 2 Know Your Role. It was so much better than any WWE game that came out on a home computer or console at that point. No, I'm not ignoring you, N64. Come here, let me give you a good belly rub. Are the PS1 games as good today? Absolutely not. No Mercy, WCW vs NWO, the Fire Pro games, and even the Technos arcade games have aged much better than the two Smackdown games on the PlayStation 1. They are a moment in wrestling game history, though, a moment of vivid nostalgia. A fond memory for me up there with Hogan slamming Andre, Tyson punching Michaels, Austin beating The Rock, Lesnar finally defeating The Undertaker and his WrestleMania undefeated streak. If Smackdown 2 really wants to know its role, well, its role is the same as the most memorable gaming memories I have of the PlayStation 1 era. But as those lyrics said in that song that they played when Ric Flair was beaten by Shawn Michaels in his WWF retirement match, leave the memories alone. So know your role and shut the hell up. Like, subscribe, and K thanks bye.